Thank you for sharing that. Now, when you have kids and you raise them, are you going to let them have a TV?
Yes, my husband is bringing me into the real world.
He's corrupting you now.
It's funny because he actually grew up in a Mennonite family, and so we're like opposites. I feel like I should be the one that grew up like that, but yeah, he helps to balance me.
That's very funny. Well, I teach a class on Monday nights, and I had a discussion with someone there who, she said, I got rid of cable because I was just like, I'm not paying, whatever she was paying per month. It was to save money, basically. She's like, and I got so much more productive after I got rid of cable. She's like, I wasn't lounging around, and, she's like, but I missed some shows, and she's like, so I'm gonna give it again.
I think a lot of it was growing up on the farm. Even after dinner, you were still like working around the farm doing stuff. Mm-hmm. So when we come home from work, and I feel like we need to do something, we need to like be productive. But that's right. Sometimes it's good just to relax.
Yeah, no, you're right about that. Okay, thank you for sharing that. And that's, what great experiences that you had that led you to this point. And I think this is a really great way to kind of get your feet wet in terms of the education process, because if you do decide to go back to school, you can always convert these to the college credits and, start a hack for your associates, or maybe something that would wind up going into a transfer degree to a four-year institution. So, so I think that's great.
Thank you.
Okay. Kim, tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I don't have my paper to read because I left it at school. But
okay, you just tell us about you anyway. That's okay.
I will let you all know that I started my first paragraph with a lot of fascinating adjectives about myself that I use the thesaurus for. Which they're not, it's just a buffer for the whole thing because I don't enjoy talking about myself, but that's okay. I'm really not that interesting. But I grew up in Mountjoy, and I've been in Lancaster County my whole life. Almost all my family is here, so I'm pretty deep-rooted. I am getting married on July 12th, so that's also kind of consuming my life. Fair warning to you, Annie, because it'll also be while I'm spending time with you. I promise not to be a Priscilla. But I'm not really going to start doing anything heavy with that until about January after the holidays because I don't want to drive my family and friends crazy.
Yeah. Where are you getting married? Where are you? Do you know that yet?
Yes. We're actually getting married at my fiance's church, which is Brightside Baptist in Lancaster City. And then we're having our reception at Millersville University in one of the dining halls there.
Very cool.
Yes.
I just had a friend who used Millersville as their reception, and he said it was wonderful.
The one on Millersville or the one downtown?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I've actually had friends do both. So I know April's sister is actually the one that referred me to Millersville.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm having mine there.
Oh,
and they redid it, so it looks gorgeous.
Yeah, it's really nice in there. It's more than you think it would be. My fiance and I have been together for over 4 years now, and we've just been getting situated. We're hoping to look for a house also in the next 2 months, so that'll also be exciting.
Yeah.
That
is exciting.
Yeah. So many things, life, growing up. I also have my bachelor's in elementary education. Nicole and I actually graduated together. That's how I know her. And we graduated in 2012. And I actually started working for the Y right after college. I did summer camp, and it was just kind of like a shoe-in to the kindergarten position. So I just felt like I was in the right place at the right time, and I really enjoy it. I actually did my student teaching in full-day kindergarten. So I have that experience to bring to the table, and I felt like it was just, okay, I'll deal with 5-year-olds.
Right. Where did you get your degree, Kim?
Millersville.
Okay.
I started at Hack. I actually went to Hack for the first 3 years because my dad actually lost his job, so I had to pay out of pocket. So then I transferred from Hack to Millersville and spent 2 years at Millersville.
That's great, because what does your degree say on it?
Which one? From Millersville?
Yeah, it says Millersville, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of people don't realize how much money they can save by going to a community college first, or a junior college and
Right.
transferring the credits to a four-year school. Because at the end of the day, that diploma says, wherever you graduated from. So.
Oh yeah, I preach it. I preach it to high school kids, to my family, my cousins, because it will save them a whole lot of money. I know it did me.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. I'm glad. Welcome, Nicole.
Hi.
I'm glad you made it on. So
Thanks. Me too.
what we're doing right now is we're just sharing. We're not reading our autobiographies. We're just sharing the information that we included in there. So we're all talking a little bit about ourselves,
Okay.
getting to know each other just a little bit better. And so Lindsay and Kim, you already know Kim, so you missed Lindsay's presentation. So we know that you know Kim from Kim's presentation. So so we'll go on to, I'm sorry, Kim, were you finished?
Oh, sure.
You're like, yeah, I was done.
How rude.
I didn't want to interrupt you if you had anything else to share. One more question, Kim. So since your degree is in elementary ed, are you still looking for a job in a public school district, or are you thinking you found your niche, or?
I am on a 3-year plan right now.
Okay.
When I first started at the Y, I was like, if I could get something full-time, that would be awesome. Well, my wish was granted, and I have that. So I'd like to take advantage of at least being stable there for 3 years before I even start, like, the interview process or looking anywhere,
Right.
especially because I'm probably going to be so deep-rooted in this area, and it's almost impossible to get jobs when you just are like everybody else,
Yeah.
if you will, cookie cutter. So, I said after next year would be, like after next summer would be the time that I look at my options. But
Right. No, I think that's a smart way to approach it, because I know, and you probably have had new staff come in who are in a similar situation, and they're like, I'm just doing this until, and then some of them just work maybe for a couple of months, and then they're like, I'm just going to start subbing for public school districts because I might have, a better chance of getting in if I'm already subbing. And really that's not true anymore, because most school districts use a large pool of people, and it's not like the principal's calling you anymore to come in.
Right.
They do it randomly unless someone specifically asks for you. So it's not how it used to be in terms of, if I sub for this school, maybe, I'll get the first job that opens up. It doesn't work that way anymore.
Right.
So now you're adding a credential to it, so that is also going to set you apart, and then you've also got some experience. So I think that's a smart way to approach it.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, David, you're up.
All right. I'm 24. No degree yet, but I'm still attending Noorsville. Graduated from York Catholic High School and then went to Temple for 2 years. And after being there for 2 years, didn't really know what I wanted to do in life or after college, so I decided to do a year of service, and I joined the AmeriCorps, City Year in particular, in Washington, D.C. So I pretty much was a second grade teacher's assistant in D.C. public schools, which was a huge eye-opener for me to the struggles of the inner city school districts and the problems that teachers have with all the red tape and the hard lives that these kids are coming from and trying to graduate. So that was like my motivation, and then after finishing City Year to then switch my major to social work, so I can try and help more kids graduate than are currently happening.
Yeah, that's great. I commend you for even doing that. That's tough. That's really tough.
Yeah, financially, it was City Year was very difficult, but rewarding, and I would suggest it to anyone. Yeah, that's education. That's me. I'm a huge football fan, and I love playing soccer.
Who's your favorite football team?
Eagles, of course.
My fiance just fist pumped, just so you know.
Well, Well, I guess other big news, me and my family, we started our own nonprofit last year
Oh.
Wow.
called Outreach Paraguay. So we take groups of doctors and other college students to Paraguay and do some type of outreach projects. So this past June, we took a group of 20 doctors from, or nurses from the Drexel Nursing Program, and they did like classes and presentations about how to stop respiratory diseases to kids. So that's what keeps me busy in my free time.
Wow, that's really cool.
So I'm already buying my ticket to go back this summer, and hopefully I'm trying to stay for an extra month so I can see some World Cup games down in Brazil.
I think that might count for your advocacy project.
Yeah.
Starting a nonprofit.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm pretty sure that would qualify, yeah.
Setting the bar high.
Yeah,
So if anyone wants some trip to do and would be interested in going to South America, let me know.
Well, if we don't go to Jamaica with the youth group, maybe.
Do you have to have a medical background?
We can kind of work it around anyone's schedule. Like even this past trip, we took a few just undergrad students as kind of being like secretary or like helping run stands. A lot of kids even they are going for a Spanish degree, so even just to go down there as a way of picking up Spanish.
Wow, that's a great idea.
Yeah, because I don't know if anyone speaks Spanish, but South American Spanish is definitely a lot easier to understand than the Puerto Rican Spanish that's very popular around here.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. That's really fascinating, interesting stuff. Now, were you born here in the U.S.?
Yeah, I was born in Philly.
Okay. But you said your dad immigrated here.
Yeah, and my mom served in the Peace Corps in Paraguay, which is how they met.
Gotcha.
So service and outreach and foreign travel has always been a part of my family.
Very cool. Very neat. Okay, April, tell us a little bit about you.
Okay. I have lived in Lancaster my whole life. I'm the youngest of 10. I had a child in high school. I graduated from McCaskey. I took their early childhood program there for my 11th and 12th grade year. That's where I got my AGS certification for children. The teacher there was amazing. She's the one that basically like pushed me into this is really what I wanted to do. Like I was her teacher assistant, so she was always there for me to help me. We would go into the child care there at McCaskey because there's a child care, and we would like interact with the children and be there with them most of the time. Like we would do externships too, where we had to go to different schools. I was actually at Wickersham, so I got to know a lot of the kids there. It was actually a really amazing program.
Wow.
But I have 2 children. My son is 11 years old. He's in 6th grade. My daughter is 8 years old, and she's in 3rd grade. They're 2 wonderful kids. Me and my boyfriend got a house in Mountville in around 2009. So we've been here ever since. It's a really good neighborhood to raise children in, so this is why we stuck with this. And just really love hanging out with my family and enjoying everything with them. Like we go a lot of places together. We do a lot of family picnics, family functions. My one brother lives in Delaware, so we go to visit him a lot. I don't have a degree. I just have like my AGS, and then I got my child care credentials, so now I'm trying to get my SAC credentials, and then after this, since I'm now in the director position, I'm going to be going to get my director credentials, so step by step.
Step by step. I think that's great. I think that's great. Okay, and Nicole.
Yay. I am 24. I graduated Millersville in 2012, and I went to Manheim Township. I've always been with my mother. I was homeschooled the last 3 years, which was an interesting experience because my mom was my main teacher and we didn't get along very well.
Oh.
But yeah, but somehow I made through it. um, since I graduated Millersville, I first got a job at KinderCare because they were hiring and it was a full-time job. And I hated it because I pretty much spent the entire day cleaning diapers and wiping up snot. So when Kim told me about the Y, I applied right away and somehow got a rap position, which I'm very thankful for.
Mm-hmm.
And although I sometimes hate my children that I have, I also love them. And I love the challenge. It keeps me busy all day long, so I can't complain too much. But other than that, my life is pretty boring. I've always wanted to be a teacher. I've never wanted to do anything else, so I think it's where I work now is a good step to hopefully getting a job in a district someday. But I don't have the 3-year plan. It's kind of like, oh, whatever.
You get on the 3-year plan, Nicole. It's
No, sorry, there's no 3-year plan.
Well, I mean, look, the truth is right now it's pretty difficult, and to be honest with you, this is what happened to me when I graduated from college in, oh God, 1992. So it was just the market. I mean, everywhere I went in the state of Pennsylvania, like if I wanted a teaching job, I had to move to Georgia or somewhere else. And I have roots here in Pennsylvania in terms of family. And they had, teachers were laid off, and, you know, it was just so hard to find a job. And I went the non-traditional route also. I taught in a private school. And, you know, really the only experience in public school regular teaching is the student teaching that I did when I got my degree. So after that, it was just all very non-traditional stuff. And the reality of it is, you know, we have such a changing society. We talked a little bit about technology the other night, you know, so it has opened up different avenues for a lot of different people. So I think it's good to keep your mind open and to continue to develop yourselves with further education and making yourself more unique and marketable in that regard. So I think you guys are all, you know, approaching this in a very good way. So hats off to you. Okay. The other thing that you had supposed to have been working on for your binder was your program description. So if you see in your binder, which is on, it's tab 1, page 11, it should be about 300 words. You already told us, I'm not going to ask you to do that because everybody shared, you know, we're all doing an after-school program. 3 of you are in the same program, 3 or 4 of you. So it's nothing that you need to share with us, but just be aware that you should have that done at this point. Your classroom cultural checklist and reflection, that can actually count. I think it's number 19 in your binder. And can also count for one of your, the reflection part can count for one of your portfolio journal entries. So it's talking about like cultural diversity. So I emailed that classroom checklist to everybody. Did everybody get that?
Yes.
Okay. You know, so you can complete that and count that as one of those artifacts for that number in your binder. Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, did everybody get the, did you get from your director your DPW information in terms of your contact person?
I did not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
All right, so that's one thing you want to work on soon. Who said yes? Did somebody say yes? Anyone? Okay, so something you want to work on soon, and then did anyone get a copy of the regulations?
I do have a copy of them.
Is that April? You said that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, and where did you get that from?
I had ours from, because we are actually with the same site as the early childhood program, so we all share like the same one.
Right.
They handed it out a while. I just had it from working there.
Okay. So if you want to just get the quick and dirty route to get that done, so I'm sharing my screen now. You can either, I can email you this link, but you can also Google Chapter 3270, and this is DPW guidelines for childcare. I'm just going to do this. Okay, so you all have the link now. And so basically you could just Google this, and these are the regulations, and you want to definitely do it for child care centers because DPW, which stands for the Department of Public Welfare, they oversee senior care, they oversee family home providers, and there are different requirements for the different age groups or different facilities. So you can go through here. It's a very long document, as most legislation is. But it does have an introduction and a purpose, and it gives you the definitions. So if you're ever reading through any other part of the document and you're like, well, what does that exactly mean? You can go back to the definitions section. Can you hear us?
Yeah, it's getting a little in and out.
Okay, that's weird. Okay, I didn't change anything. Hold on. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Sometimes when that happens, if you just, like if it happens to you, I just muted my microphone and unmuted it again. That's all I did. So, okay. So if you're going through the provisions here, can everybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So if you're going through the provisions and you're like, well, when they say infant, what does that mean exactly? So if you go back to the definitions section, the infant is a child from birth to 1 year of age, a young toddler, because this is where we get our ratios from, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So if it's a younger school age child, a child who attends kindergarten to the date the child enters 4th grade of a public or private school system. And then an older school age child is a child who attends 4th grade of a public or private school system through 15 years of age. So the reason that they describe these age ranges is because the younger the child is, the smaller the child to teacher ratio needs to be. So when you get into school age kids, your ratio can be higher. So for example, for infants in a child care setting, you can only have 4 infants per 1 teacher, which I still think is too much. So I'm like,
Definitely so. Yeah.
I think about that. Like if you've got, because usually when one infant starts crying, then the other ones just join in for, you know, they're like, that's my comrade in arms, and I'm coming to their aid.
The newborn infant, they need more direct care than older infants would, mobile infants. So it's like you kind of want to help the baby out, but then you have another one that's trying to crawl over things.
Right. It's very difficult. Well, that's why, you know, in what we do at Luther Care is we always certainly comply with DPW ratios, but we usually have 3 to 1 infants, and we always have 2 teachers in the room. So if there are 4 infants in the room, we have 2 teachers, which then brings that ratio down, but then we usually don't go over 6 for those 2 teachers. Because what happens when you have, because you've got, think about that, you've got a 6-week-old and you have an 11-month-old who's walking in your classroom, and you've got to change the diaper of the 6-week-old, so you're gloved up. You're not supposed to leave that baby unattended. In fact, you're not supposed to even take your hand off of the child while you're changing their diaper so that they don't fall. And then you've got a walker who's, you know, getting into stuff that they're not supposed to be getting into. So you either need to, you know, have another teacher in there who can attend to the other kids who are not getting their diaper changed, or you need to set up a situation where either that child goes into a swing, or they are kind of, you block off an area where they can be that's very contained until you're done changing the diaper. So there's some finagling to do with younger kids.
Well, I actually had our infant room teacher when I was in there because we would have the same problem, and I was always by myself with like 4 kids max. Like they would always have us max with 4 kids. So I told them for our grandson one year that I wanted like one of those gates that you block them in where they have just their playtime over there. So they actually ended up doing that and buying one, and they're a lifesaver because then they can just do whatever's on that side of the gate, and then the other side is like the changing table and everything else.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think that that makes sense. And you really have to do that not just for your sanity, but also for the safety of the children, because it's not like
Exactly.
you can, you've got like a poop smeared glove. You can't walk away from that baby anyway. And what are you going to do with that? You have to unglove or whatever. It's impossible, and then that makes it, iffy in terms of safety, which we said the safety comes first. So, when you have, let's say you have a mixed group, and let's say that with your young school-age children, you have some preschool kids mixed in. Which ratio do you follow?
The youngest.
The youngest. Always the youngest. Always. So, as an example, young toddlers, I think it's 6-to-1 is the ratio. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
That's 2-year-olds. Yeah, that would be 6-to-1.
6-to-1. But if you've got young toddlers and infants mixed, you can only have 4-to-1. You always default to the younger ratio. Okay? And I know you guys are working with school-age kids. I'm just using that as an example. Okay? So the next section.
Yeah. No little kids. I'm not doing any diapers.
Yeah. No, I understand that. But even if you have, like, sometimes a center will combine at the end of the day, if any of you are
that's what we
closers.
do.
Okay? So if you've got preschool kids that mixed in with your school-agers, you have to go with the preschool ratio, not the school-age ratio. Okay? So that's the point I'm trying to make with that. Okay? So the next section of this code are the general requirements and the kinds of things that you need to be aware of. I'm just going to point out real quick. This general health and safety, it's really funny. I would encourage you to just, when you have some time, click on that and be like, compare it to what you're doing at your center and make sure that you're in compliance, okay? And think, well, we do that all the time consistently, or we don't do any of that. So you might want to just take a look at that. And then every single center needs to have an emergency plan in place. And this is not just a plan for exiting the building when there's a fire. This means, what to do if there's a bomb threat, if there's a hurricane, if there's, flooding in your facility, if there's a terrorist attack. I mean, all those things, you need to have provisions for what you're going to do with the kids in that event. And then also in here is child abuse reporting. Okay, so there's a provision for that. So chances are your director is really on top of all of those, but it would be interesting to see, just to take a look, to say, hey, what is our emergency plan, or what is our procedure for reporting child abuse? Because the state has one. There are certain things you have to do in terms of DPW regulations, but other policies, other institutions or organizations have different policies regarding how it's initially reported. In other words, you as a teacher always have the responsibility to report child abuse. And if you go to your director and tell your director, I suspect X, Y, and Z, and your director says that's not a reportable offense, but you in your gut feel that this child really might be being abused, you need to make that call. And you cannot be fired for that. You have to do it. You're a mandated reporter. And it's not your job or your director's job to determine if something is abuse. Children and youth or Childline will determine. You just tell them the facts. You tell them what you know. And they will make the determination as to whether it's abuse or not and whether they need to get involved and investigate. Okay?
Okay.
Any questions about that so far?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, in the next section, this goes through the facility persons. So this is, your age in the training. So let's take a look at this. So this says, any volunteer shall be 15 years of age or older and shall be directly supervised at all times. So you say, one of your coworkers says, my 14-year-old sister wants to come in and volunteer and read stories to the kids. Can they do that?
No.
No. Okay, they have to be 16
Negative.
years of age or older. If they're 14, they probably need to be enrolled in the program so if they want to come in.
Oh my.
Okay, because you serve, what's the highest you guys go for age group?
13, I think.
12,
Yeah.
13. Does anyone go to 15?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
No.
so
No.
no one. Okay, so I mean, you can go up to age 15. Some just don't. Okay, for whatever reason. I mean, some parents are like, well, at age 14 or whatever, my child can be home alone until I get home from work, so they don't use after-school care. Okay. A staff person has to be 18 years of age or older, so you can't hire 17 or under year old. Okay. An individual 16 years of age or older who is enrolled in an approved training curriculum may be used as a staff person if the following guidelines are met. And so then they have provisions. So who was it? Because I can't remember. April, you did. Who's got an airplane flying over?
Oh, me. Sorry. That's hilarious. I didn't hear
Okay.
it.
So April, you did that program at McCaskey, right? You did your program in the 11th and 12th grade. So so you probably qualified. You could have been hired at 16 because you would have gone
I did.
through all this
We
stuff.
had to have,
Okay.
I had to go get a physical and get, like my TB test and all that stuff done.
Okay. All right. So this also talks about your minimum safety requirements in terms of training. So you guys all know you have to have your first aid training and you have to have it updated. You go through fire safety training every single year, right? And part of that is also, like participating in a fire drill. So how often do you guys do fire drills?
Twice a year.
Every 30 days.
Okay, so that was a lot of different answers. So I heard every 30 to 60 days. Is that what someone said?
I said every 30 days we do one.
Every 30 days, okay?
Yeah.
And then some people say twice a year.
Spring and fall.
Anything different than that? Yeah, I don't see.
Wow.
And I went to them after a meeting last week because since I'm new, I feel like I have no idea. So, yeah, I need to talk to the director just about
Let me tell you how
getting
my
me.
kids would have no idea if something actually did
Right,
happen.
right.
We have to
Yeah.
practice where our hypothetical fires are. We put them different every month just so we can use different exits because I mean you never know.
Right.
Right, which I think is obviously good. So, I don't know, maybe I can talk to them about that.
Yeah, it's always
Yeah.
good. And then, Lindsay, do you have in your program you have younger kids too, right? Like in your center.
Yes.
So one of those is supposed to be during nap time.
Okay.
Okay, so like at least once a year you need to do one that's during nap time because that's a reality. And then how do you get
Yeah.
4
Check all the
sleeping
math.
infants out of the building
Right.
during nap time? And that's a very real thing that you need to practice for. And I think with the fire safety training, like I was telling you the other night, like all our staff roll their eyes because it has to be done every year. We try to make it interesting, and it's hard to do because there's a very specified, information set that you need to cover in the fire training. But it's one of those things where everyone just thinks it's never going to happen to me.
Yeah.
But it is a very real possibility. It does happen to centers, and we want to
It
make
does
sure.
happen to people. Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
April speaks from
I will
experience.
vouch for that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So has everyone here fired a fire extinguisher?
Not recently, but in my life, yes.
Okay.
No, I've never. I don't think.
Yeah. So what you want to do then, Lindsay, when you talk to your folks, is ask them.
They're going to wonder if they really should have hired me.
Well, no, please don't think that because this is a common thing that I run across. There are people working in the field who have never fired off a fire extinguisher. And if there's a fire in your facility, do you really want to pull that fire extinguisher off the wall and have to turn to your co-teacher and say, do you know how to use this thing?
Right.
And have your co-teacher go, no, I thought you did. Like you don't want to be in that situation.
Right.
So, one of the things we do as an organization is we have an annual health and safety day, and so we do our fire training for everybody, so that way everybody's on the same schedule.
Okay.
And then that way we get new hires also, and then if they're hired sometime in the middle of the year, we do an additional fire training specifically for them. But we have a fire marshal come with fire extinguishers, and all new hires go in practice, and then every 2 years, all staff practice.
Yeah.
So just so that you feel confident about your knowledge and knowing what to do in case there is a fire. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay, and then for lifeguard and water safety, that would be only if you've got pool situations. Do any of you have that in the summertime?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And so you've got to go, make sure that you've got that training as well. But that's only if you have a pool. Okay. And then it goes through here and it talks about group supervisor qualifications and responsibilities, assistant group supervisor. So, if you have any questions about that, all the answers are right here. The next one goes through child ratio. Okay. So for young school age, it's 12 to 1. You guys probably knew that. And the maximum group size is 24. Older school age is 15 to 1, maximum group size 15. Okay. So if you've got older...
Which is new to me.
That's news to you? Yeah, because a lot of places...
No, it's insane.
Go ahead.
I just think it's insane. They could overrun you. You'll be in the closet.
Well, I agree
wait,
with you.
We can't have more than 24 kids showing up to after school? Is that what that's saying?
You can only have 1 to 12. So if there's 2 of you, then you can have 24.
Right, then you can have 24, and that doesn't mean that you can only have 24 in your after-school program as long as you have more than 1 room to contain them.
Gotcha.
So, but if we only have 1 room, we can't have more than 24.
You're not supposed to.
So if we're in, but even if like a cafeteria, like that's a huge room.
No, I getcha.
Don't they just have to have more staff if they have more children?
Trying to figure out how to interpret this.
Like I don't want to get my job in trouble, but like we have 4 staff, and we have like 36, 38 kids now.
Well, that's how it is in our center too. So
Yeah.
we're in a large staff room, which is for kids, but the capacity is like 50 or 30 or 40 or something like that because of like school age. That's where we have our summer camp program as well.
Mm-hmm. Now, I understand what you're saying. I would call your DPW rep because I don't think this part of the law is very clear. It doesn't specifically say,
Okay.
when it says
staff, and we can
maximum
have
group
this
size,
many.
let's see if there's anything in the definitions under group. Okay, so no. See, it says, this is why the definitions are important. Children assigned to the care of 1 or 2 staff persons. A group occupies a space or a defined part of a space. So, technically, when you're in that cafeteria, let's say, David, you and your co-teacher have a group of, 20 kids, and another duo has a group of 20 kids. You've got 40 kids total. Technically, what you're not supposed to be doing is just having all the kids have the run of the cafeteria. You should have like half outside, half inside, or half on half of the, one side of the room, half on the other, and then switch.
Okay.
Because
summer group, that's what they do.
Yeah, and I understand.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, and I understand why they do this because if you've got that many kids running around the room, like Kim, you said, like they'll overrun you. You'll be hiding in the closet because you won't be able to defend yourself.
Yep.
How can you keep track of your kids in your care group if they're all running all over the place and there's so many kids mixed in? It's much more difficult in terms of supervision. So yes, if you've got that big space, you can have more than 24 or 30 kids. but you need to define the space and, be creative about how you move them around through that after-school program or before-school care.
Okay.
Okay, make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Be done before that.
Okay, so after that, it describes the physical site. So, like, for example, did you all know that there's a minimum and maximum indoor temperature for the kids?
Yep.
Outdoor, yes. I didn't know about indoor.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, because we have that problem at our building. So it's such an old building.
Mm-hmm.
It gets really, really hot and cold in our room. So they have to make sure, and if not, they have to move you to another room if your room is not temperature.
So it's got to be at least 65 degrees, and it can't exceed 82 degrees, and if it does, then you need to either have heating or air conditioning to control the temperature.
Oh, yep.
Okay, a lot of people don't know that. Smoking. All right, so cigarettes, pipes, or cigars may not be smoked in the child care space. Are you all smoke-free facilities at this point?
I don't
Yes.
even know how you would. I don't even know how that's appropriate to ask. My goodness, that's crazy.
Well, because there are some centers that allow, there's a designated teacher space, and they do allow smoking.
They have that outside of our building. And
Okay.
I just actually started fighting that last week because I want them to put up like some kind of glass thing.
Uh-huh.
Because I get tired of walking past that space and smelling like smoke. It's disgusting.
Right. Okay. So basically, and we know this, you can't smoke where the kids are. You can't smoke when you're preparing food. That kind of thing. Okay. Let's see.
Quick thing. I saw a guy coaching for another program, and he had spit tobacco. Is that something that would be not allowed either?
Let's see what that says.
It doesn't say anything there about.
Chewing tobacco.
I thought that was disgusting.
It is disgusting. I would like to not see that. Well, here's basically how it works. I mean, DPW, it is the minimum requirement that you have to have in place in order to keep children safe. So smoking around children or smoking around their food could endanger their health. Chewing tobacco in front of them is a bad example, but it doesn't make them unsafe. It doesn't risk their personal safety. So DPW, that's probably why they don't have a regulation in there about that. That doesn't mean that a center can't have a policy that says, that's a bad example and I can't let you do that in front of the kids. Okay. As a center, you can have any regulation you want. You can say you're not allowed to paint your toes red. You
should
really
never see my toes anyway.
Well, you can say, because you guys know you can't wear like flip-flops. Most people can't. Most centers have like a no flip-flop policy because if you need to run to catch a kid or run in an emergency or something like that, you can't really do that very well in flip-flops. So most centers require closed-toed shoes that, either tie or buckle or, something like that. So, you can have any policy that you want. I use the red toe example just because it's ridiculous. No center would probably have that. But as a center, you can create any policy that you want. And you just have to make it really clear to people before hire that that's your policy. So where this comes into play is like cell phone usage. We talked about that a little bit, So what kind of policy do you have? You can't create a policy that involves, well, you can, but you probably don't want to because you leave yourself open for liability. So let's say you say, well, okay, you can bring your cell phones to work, but you have to leave them in a basket in the director's office. And you can use them on your cell phone, on your break. You can come back and get your cell phone and check them. But then what's the problem with that picture?
They're in the
In case of
director's office?
emergency, it's nice to have a phone so you can make a phone call for something. I don't know.
What if something would happen that you had to leave and you need an emergency? That's what
Well,
I don't understand when they tell us with the cell phones.
Right.
Like, I always like having mine on me just in case we would get called out. Like, how are we supposed to call the parents if an emergency happened and we can't get back in the building?
I think that maybe it's kind of like your personal information in the director's office. So maybe like we have lockers, so I feel like it's safer. Like maybe it gets stolen out of the basket, and then
Yeah, as a center, you then become responsible for that person's device.
right.
So if it gets broken, cracked, damaged in any way, shape, or form, you leave yourself open to liability. Now, I understand what you're saying about emergencies, and everybody wants to be in touch, like you, April, you were talking about. Like, that's my way to get in touch with my child if anything would happen. So, you know, what we generally tell our staff, because this is becoming a problem all over the place.
Yeah.
What we generally tell our staff is that you can't use your cell phone during work hours. I mean, that's not what we're paying you to do, number one, and we see lots of staff texting and, you know, Facebooking and stuff like that, and during nap time and whatever, and that's not what we're paying you to do. We're paying you to be responsible for the kids, and during nap time you have other responsibilities. So if there's an emergency, there's a couple of different things that you can do. I always encourage our staff members, if you have children in school somewhere else, you know, and you're working, give that school or those people the number of the center, and if there's an emergency, they need to call you at the center. Because the reality of it is, you know, let's say you have your cell phone locked up in your purse and you have the kids outside. You know, you're still not going to get to that emergency phone call until the next time you check your phone. So if you have the center phone and your director can come to you immediately and say you need to call the school, your kid's sick or whatever. Okay. So because the problem is, and people are recognizing this, if you are on your phone, I think we talked about this a little bit because I tell it to everyone I talk to, if you are on your phone and you're supposed to be watching the kids and something bad happens, and parents have seen you, like there have been other times where they come in to pick up their child or to drop their kid off, and they have seen you texting or doing whatever on your phone, they will subpoena the cell phone records, and there is always a timestamp, and the cell phone companies have an exact record of when you sent texts, whatever activity you did on your phone. So even if you delete it, it's still out there in cyberspace and it's documented. And if you have been doing something on your personal device during a time when you were supposed to be watching a child, I promise you'll never teach again. Something bad happens to that kid gets seriously hurt or dies, you're liable, and they could also close your center down. So really be thinking about the position of liability you put yourself in. Everybody thinks, well, I'll just check that text real quick. But really, what did we do before cell phones? People called the center, and if you knew you were getting a call or needed to make a call, you know, you should tell your director, I need to step out at such and such a time to either make a call or take a call, so that there's coverage. So that way it covers you and it covers your center. Okay? Any questions about cell phone usage?
No.
Okay. Okay, first aid kits, it talks about here, you know, you have to have a first aid kit in the child care space. It must be inaccessible to children, so it's got to be locked away somewhere. And then these are the things that it has to contain. It needs to have soap, bandages, sterile gauze, pads, tweezers, tape, scissors, and disposable non-porous gloves. Does it say anything about alcohol, rubbing alcohol? Not like vodka, where you think you might need to take a drink. Not that kind of alcohol. Okay. Peroxide?
No.
No.
No. Any antibacterial, like an antibiotic cream?
No.
No. Okay, that's because we're not supposed to be using those things when we're administering first aid. Now, here's the really interesting thing, and I have to look and see if this is a DPW reg, because Luther Care generally follows the American Academy of Pediatrics guidelines for administering first aid. And for the longest time, we thought that there was no use of an antibiotic ointment. But I recently read, in the 2011 updated ones, that when they have a scrape, that you are supposed to apply an antibiotic cream. So I was wondering what you guys do.
We don't do that.
Does anybody?
Honestly, I don't know yet.
Okay, because you haven't had to administer first aid so, in your 3 weeks?
Right.
Okay.
So we always have an unopened bottle of water in our first aid kit.
That's what we have too.
Okay.
So we pour that sometimes over cuts or something just to clean it.
Yeah. My feeling is, even if the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends it, we don't follow that. We don't have to do that. It's just what they recommend. Okay? So what we don't want to do is things that they don't recommend. So like if a child gets a burn, you don't put a butter or an ointment or anything like that. You don't use home remedies or anything like that on it. So, just to make you aware, removing ticks, like what the American Academy of Pediatrics recommends is that you grab the tick with tweezers or your fingers and you briskly, like as close to the head as possible, and you briskly pull it away. Whenever I have found a tick on a pet of mine, if that's ever been the case, I always take a little bit of olive oil and stick it on the tick, because eventually it gets the animal's skin gets too greasy for the tick to hold on to, so it comes out really easily. But you can't do that in a child care program. So certain things you can do at home, you can't do with kids in a child care program. So we generally, because we don't know how a child might react allergically to any kind of ointment or solution, we generally just use soap and water. Okay. So Lindsay.
Yes.
A fire drill shall be held every 60 days.
Okay.
That is the regulation. Okay?
Wow. Okay.
So you can let them know so that they can get into compliance. Okay?
Yes.
And you have to have a written record
Okay.
of that, the date, the time of day, the hypothetical location of the fire, the evacuation time. I mean, all that stuff is right here, if you can see my screen.
Yes.
So it's
okay.
3270.94 fire drills in the law. Okay. And let's see. During various program activities, different times of day. So you can't have a fire drill every 60 days on a Monday at 9 a.m. because it works for you.
Right.
Okay. You have to have the evacuation routes posted, etc. So, and it's important to do. It's important to practice. We did talk about that. Do you guys do any other type of drill, like emergency drill?
We do like emergency weather.
Okay.
We have intruder drills, like there's an intruder in the building.
And that too.
Okay. Which is scary, and it kind of makes me sad that we do that. You know what I mean? Like that we have to do that, but it is one of the things. Yes. Okay. After that, it goes through equipment. So it talks about like the equipment that you can use. It's stuff that's got to be updated, and you have to make sure that it hasn't been recalled. So what we see a lot in programs, because look, we're all struggling for funds, right? We say, well, we just don't have a lot of money for this and that and the other. And so sometimes out of the goodness of our heart, we go to yard sales or somebody donates something and we just start to use it. And you really need to Google and make sure that there's been no recall on that particular furniture, okay, or toy for whatever reason. Okay. Then it has some different things about programs, and we'll just look at school-age children. It just says, when a facility serves a school-age child, homework supervision shall be provided in accordance with arrangements determined by the parent and the operator. So those are really the only program restrictions.
That's crazy.
Yeah, for school-age children. Now, this is good for you because it gives you lots of flexibility in what you can do for your program. Okay? Because like we said, the kids have been in school all day long. They have been quiet all day long. They have been sitting all day long. And so you want to have that flexibility of what you can do with your program. You just need to come up with an agreement with the parents and you guys about homework stuff. After that, you're good to go. Okay?
Yeah.
Pets? Did somebody leave? Rejoin us. I'm not sure. Okay. Do any of you have pets?
Okay, honestly, the office lady sometimes brings her dog in and it stays in the office. But it is a service dog, I believe.
Okay.
I don't know if she's training it. That's what I think she's doing.
Okay.
So I don't know if that is okay.
That is okay, as long as, and what you should do is bring a vet certificate of a current rabies immunization and keep it at a copy of it at the facility.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
Okay, and the kids can have contact with the pets only if a staff person is physically present, and the pet should be in good health and known to be friendly to children. Okay. Okay, let's see what else. Because if we covered this whole thing, then we would just be here for days and days and days. Emergency contact information. So I'm assuming that when you guys go out on the playground or when you go on a field trip or some of you walk your kids from the school to the program and back, that you always have that backpack that's got the first aid kit. You have your center should be giving you some means of communication. So if you're out on the playground, a lot of centers use a cordless phone so that you're able to call in to the office or you're able to call 911. And you should have, if you have cell phones, they should be center cell phones. I know a lot of...
We use walkie-talkies, but I guess you can't really call 911 from them.
You can't call 911 with a walkie-talkie. So, yeah. What we do is we've got prepaid cell phones because they're used in a very limited fashion. And any cell phone, even a prepaid one, if it does not have minutes on it, you can still call 911.
Okay.
Okay? So it's worth it for the center to invest in some prepaid phones because you have to figure you don't need one for every class. You just need a few for when classes are going to be outside or on a field trip. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And then in that, you should also have in that backpack, you should have all of your emergency contact information for all of the kids in your care. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then you guys don't really do food except for snacks, and this just goes through meals, basically. And then child records. That's basically it. Let's see here, school age programs.
Well, we do breakfast and lunches
Yeah,
and stuff on like all-day camps, like when the kids have off school or on their shortened Wednesdays. At least
So you provide those meals rather than the school
And we
district?
actually...
Well, it comes like on the Columbus Day, for example, the kids have off school, so we provide all-day care, and we will be providing breakfast, lunch, and snack.
Right.
And at our center, we do breakfast every morning.
You do. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Okay, so basically what it says here is if a child receives care for 4 or more consecutive hours, nutritional, appropriately timed meals and snacks shall be served. So if they're there for more than 4 hours or more, you have to serve them something. Okay. And I'll just share a story with you because so many times we are confused about the behavior of kids, right? Mm-hmm. We're like, what is going on with that kid? Like all of a sudden she's just off the wall or she's crying or he's angry and hitting, and kids will always show you how they feel, and because kids are still developing, especially your younger school age kids, might not know that the reason they're cranky or upset or aggressive is because they're hungry. So this is particularly important if you are dealing with younger kids, like toddlers, because they really can't tell you. They won't come up to you and say, Miss April, I know I've been acting out for the past 15 minutes and it's because I'm hungry. Like, they don't have the language skill to tell you that. And a lot of young school-age kids just don't recognize those body signals yet. So I know that I was asked to do an observation in one of our centers in a 3-year-old classroom, and they're like, we have 4 kids who have behavior problems, and blah, 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 and we need help, and we don't know what to do, and can you come and observe? I was like, sure, I'll come and watch, because sometimes a fresh set of eyes just gives you some more information, things that you might have missed. So I said, send me a copy of your schedule, and let me know when you have the most Like, when is your most challenging time? Is it during free play? Is it during circle time? Because if it's during circle time, maybe your circle time's too long. If it's during free play, maybe you don't have enough supervision in a certain center. You know, those kinds of things are what I'm thinking. So they served breakfast at 7:30, and lunch was not until 11:30, maybe 11:45. And so I said, well, when is your morning snack? And they said, we don't have morning snack. I'm like, okay. So I didn't say right then, but that's what I kind of figured it was, like the kids were hungry, because some kids were arriving after 8. They only serve breakfast from 7:30 to 8. So some kids are arriving after 8, and we don't know if or when they ate, right? So if they got up really early, and let's say they ate at 6, well, now they have to go from 6 to 11:30 or 11:45 without food. So I said, when is your most challenging time? And they're like, around 10, which makes sense, because if they ate at 7:30 or ate before that or didn't eat at all, then around 10 o'clock they're going to start to get hungry again. So I'm thinking, okay, I think that the only thing going on is in the absence of a snack, but I'm still going to go and I'm going to see. So when I walked in, they actually did a food activity around 10 o'clock, and the kids were eating cucumbers during this time. And it was funny because the teachers were like, wow, I can't believe they're eating the cucumbers. Like, they don't even like cucumbers. You know, I'm like, and I'm thinking it's because they're starving, you know, like they're hungry. And so, Kim, are you still with us? Okay. Kim, are you still with us?
Wake up.
Wake up.
It says, or yeah, it's showing that she's offline, so I don't know if something happened to her connection. So, well, anyway, hopefully she'll get back in touch. But so they're like, scarfing down these cucumbers, and I'm like, okay. So I didn't see any behavior issues. And so afterwards I talked to the teachers, and they're like, we knew it. We knew as soon as you were going to come in, like they were going to be angels and there wasn't going to be a problem. And I said, okay, well, what was different? So I said, first of all, did today go better than other days? They're like, yeah, they were fine. Like, we didn't have to reprimand any child or redirect any child. They were totally fine. I said, well, what was different? They said, well, there's the one of them was absent, and she's like the instigator. And I'm like, okay, but you said you have 4 behavior problems, and I couldn't tell who they were. And I said, what else was different? And they're like, I don't know. So what were you doing around 10 o'clock? What was your activity? I'm like, oh, that was cooking. I'm like, yeah, so they got to eat. I said, they're like, oh my gosh, they're hungry. They're hungry. You know? So sometimes it could be that a kid's dehydrated or they're just hungry, and that is what's causing the behavior issue. So you definitely want to keep them fueled. And we talked about this the other night when they're coming in from school. Some of the kids have eaten at 10:30, quarter of 11, 11 o'clock, and they're not getting to you until 3. They need to refuel. So what I often talk to people about, so Dave, you said that you've got like a bigger group. So maybe you rotate kids, rotate them through a snack and homework time. Allow them to eat snack while they're doing their homework. I'll give them a choice. Say, because David, how many staff members do you have with that group?
4 until the ratio goes down.
Okay. So 2 of them could take half the kids outside, and 2 of them could stay with half the kids inside, right?
We could, but we usually keep them all together or in the same room. Like we keep usually kindergarten, first grade, one side, second, third, somewhere else, and then 4th and up, off to another side.
Yeah. So, my thing is basically choose 2 activities, and one of them being snack, and give kids the option. Because if they're coming to you from different school districts also, or different schools, they may have eaten at different times, or in different grades, they're going to be eating at different times. Yeah. So, be thinking about that when you have kids there. And then the other thing is that you have to provide the menu at least a week in advance to families, and you have to have it posted. Food servings, again, it's very vague. Do any of you do the the Child and Adult Food Care Program?
I don't know.
It's voluntary, and you probably don't unless you've got full day care for your other kids. April, do you do that?
Yes, they do. We get it from Manheim Township, and the child care gets the food. Yeah.
Okay. So, for DPW, all it says is food servings shall be proportioned suitably for the size and age of the child in care. What does that mean, Additional
We
food.
have, like, measuring cups.
Right. So
Like,
if you do the Child and Adult Food Care Program, then basically that gives very specific information on the types of food that you're supposed to serve and offer with each at each meal or snack, and how much. So it's like a fruit can only be counted as a fruit if it's a half a cup of fruit. And that doesn't mean that the child has to eat that. It's simply that you have to offer, because you never force children to eat anything. The Child Adult Food Care Program, which is a CACFP, what that stands for. That is the equivalent of the free lunch program that you see in public school, free breakfast, free lunch. So it's reimbursed by the government. And so the USDA reimburses for meals within that program. But if you don't offer all the components that you're supposed to, you can't get reimbursement.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments about food?
Nope.
Okay.
If we have kids that are allergic, is there like should we remove the kid that's allergic to the food, or do you remove the kid that brought in food that the other one's allergic to? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So like a peanut allergy or something like that?
Yeah, because we had some parents who were very mad that their child had to be removed when they brought peanut butter because someone else was allergic. So they're like, why is my kid being punished for what I packed for them? And then we have the other parent being mad that why is my kid constantly being removed? It's not his fault that he's allergic.
Right. What we do is, if we are a peanut-free, tree nut-free facility, and a lot of facilities are becoming that now, because we had a child who was so severely allergic that even when another child had had peanut butter for breakfast before they got to the center, because he got close, the oils were still in the child's mouth and whatever, and he got close to the other child, he had an allergic reaction.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was obviously very, very severe. So we eliminate the common allergens like that from the facility, so they can't even bring that in. And we make parents aware of that at the very beginning. We also have, another form that we send home and say, please understand that we have a peanut allergy that is so severe that it is life-threatening. So we're asking you, not to send such and such in, or, we provide all of our meals at this point. So parents aren't even sending things in anymore. So sometimes we'll ask them, please do not feed your child peanut butter for breakfast.
Yeah.
So it really, I understand what the parent is saying is like, why should my child be punished because, they don't have an allergy? We just ask that you don't bring that in. I think it's reasonable when you have an allergy like that, especially if it's severe, to create a policy that, it's like their kid's not going to die if they don't get to eat peanut butter that day.
Yeah, but we had the rule where they weren't allowed to, but parents still brought packed Lunchables, which come with peanut butter sometimes. And
then what I would do is, well, this is.
I just didn't know if there was a regulation as far as who is supposed to be removed from the room, the kid who brings the peanut butter or the kid that's allergic.
There's no regulation. There isn't even a regulation as far as DPW goes in terms of foods that are allergens to some children. That is all organization policy. If you have organization policy that says you can't bring peanut butter, and they send in peanut butter, what I would do is offer them, do you still offer them something else to eat?
Well, peanut butter, we don't provide peanut butter, but kids
No.
that bring it in from home.
No, what I mean is, okay, so is this for
Is there an
snack?
alternative?
Yeah, have an alternative there. Give the child the alternative and send that Lunchable home unopened.
Right.
Well, a lot of the kids, like, we give them our lunch, they say, I don't want this, and then they eat their Lunchables, like, because we can't, I guess, deny them their food.
A
Well,
lot
you're
of
not-
places,
ahead.
from what I understand, when you serve lunch, you're not allowed to bring your own lunch in.
Yeah.
Like, if your center provides a lunch, that's your only option, like, because
Yeah.
it's already taken care of. So most places already have that in place, and that's where that allergy would come in. Like, my girlfriend is a director for her school-age program, and that's how theirs is. Like, if they bring a packed lunch, they send it back with the parent because they're not allowed to have it.
All right.
By their center policy. So,
Yeah,
I mean, if you guys don't have one,
Because over the summer, it was a bigger issue than I thought it had to be, but we had one kid who couldn't be in the same room as peanut butter. Just the smell would, you know, get them all sick.
Right.
So, but the one parent, or quite a few parents, we continuously pack their kids with peanut butter.
When your parents sign up and they enroll, do they know about this policy?
We tell them why. We ask them not to bring peanut butter, but we can't. Like I told them, we can't force you not to bring peanut butter.
Oh, yes, you can.
And we told them.
Yes, you can.
yeah,
You can create any policy that you want. You can tell parents that they themselves can't wear red toenail polish. You just have to tell them that that's your policy prior to them enrolling.
Okay.
So and what we do is we have a parent handbook, and there's a signature page, and this is the part that's crucial, okay? Upon entry, upon enrollment, we ask the parent to read the parent manual and to sign that signature page, and turn it in. And that says, I have read, and you know they're going to sign it not having read it, but it's their responsibility. I have read and agree to comply with, you know, all of the everything outlined in the parent handbook. And in that parent handbook, you have the policy that they cannot, you know, we're peanut free, or we have children who have allergies to peanuts and they can be life-threatening. So you can't bring anything that's peanut butter or tree nut in, anything like that, for your child to eat. If you do, if you send that in, we will provide your child with the alternative meal, and your child will have to take that home. So that way there's no surprises.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you tell a parent, well, we can't force you not to bring it in, well, they're going to send it in.
Right. Yeah. And that makes them liable. Like, okay, well, if you're giving a reason to not have peanut butter, that parent's just being defiant at that point. Like,
Right.
Okay, we get it. Kids love peanut butter and jelly, but this is like something else is going to happen because of that. Are
Right.
you really willing to deal with that? No.
No, and the thing is that the ultimate responsibility is going to fall on you as the center, because in a court of law, the judge is going to say, why did you let that child eat it?
Yeah.
Because you had an alternative meal or snack.
Yeah.
So that ultimate responsibility falls on you as the center. So I'd be, you know, just be really, really, really careful that you have a policy. You have to have parents sign off that they agree to follow your policies, and then when they don't, you know, just be clear about it up front. Okay. It's kind of like, you know, when you do like a cell phone plan or a cable plan or whatever, and, you know, they're like, oh, get all the talk and text you want for $30 a month. And you get your bill and it's like $43.62. And you're like, wait a minute, I was told it's going to be $30 a month. Well, then there's federal tax, and then there's some kind of universal tax, and then there's, oh, you went over your data, and, you know, all these hidden charges. Then you get surprised and you're pissed because you're like, why didn't you tell me that ahead of time?
Right.
You tell parents up front ahead of time. They can't be pissed about anything because they knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I would do, and I would take that one very seriously because you have a kid who goes into shock, anaphylactic shock because of a peanut butter allergy, and there's a serious consequence for that child. I mean, that's just bad news for everyone all the way around.
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
Any other questions about food or DPW regulations? Okay, so you all know where to go now to find this, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So the last thing that we're going to cover today is you had 40 developmental assets for adolescents, and I sent you this link. Did everybody get this link?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is what you want to print out and put in your binder. These are the 40 developmental assets for youth, okay?
Okay.
So the external assets, internal assets, etc. Okay? All right, any questions about anything that we covered today? Cricket, 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 cricket.
Hello?
Yeah, are you there?
Oh, did you say something? I didn't hear what you said.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't. It keeps like going staticky, and I keep doing the mute and unmute.
Okay, does that help?
I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear you now.
All right, great. So any other questions for the good of the order or any other comments that anyone wants to share?
I don't think so.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
All this
so
talk about food's making me hungry.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's only 10:30, so you're either going to need to have a snack or
know.
eat an early lunch. So. Okay, everyone. Well, that's all I have for today. And so let me just pull this up. The next meeting that we have is on Thursday, and that is face-to-face. So I will see you all at 6:30 on Thursday.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Have a good rest
You
of your
too.
week. You too.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.